Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Finance Fridays. My name is Henna, and I'm the founder and CEO of Basis. Both Deepika and I are so excited to see our group grow so beautifully, and I've personally learned a lot as well over the last few weeks, just from the conversations we've been having. If you think it could be useful to friends, your family, colleagues, please do add them. We want to be able to reach as many women as possible and grow this tribe of financially independent women. Okay, so today the topic I'm going to talk about is something I'm super interested in. It's not a very technical finance related topic, but it is a topic that affects how we take money decisions. And by we, I mean human beings all over the world. These are sort of subconscious biases that we all have. The good news is there are ways to overcome them, which is what I'm going to talk about today. And also the fact that once we're aware of them, there are things we can just be conscious of as we make decisions about where to invest, when to pull out, and all that fun stuff. Okay, so in terms of the format, I'm actually going to cover 5 biases. I know I said 3 on the group, but there were 2 more that I thought were important to include. I'll give you a brief overview of what it is. Now, some of this may be new, some of it we have already heard of before, but please do ask questions. I'm happy to answer it. Like I said, this is a topic that I've been researching quite a bit. The whole topic of behavioral finance and the fact that human beings are not exactly the most rational thinkers, right? Okay, so let's get into bias number 1. So bias number 1 is confirmation bias. Now, what this means is, as human beings, we tend to seek out information that already confirms our beliefs. Again, it is a bias. Like, we always ask the questions of why should we be doing this instead of why not. And investors do tend to fall for this bias quite a bit as they're making a decision whether to invest or not, and fail to kind of see the reasons that could disprove what their beliefs are or their analyses are or whatever it may be. And so my kind of quick tip here is ask why and not why not. Should I invest? Don't go around try to seeking the answer that aligns with what you believe. Try to seek out answers that actually challenges your beliefs. Confirmation bias also kind of trickles into other aspects of our lives, which we won't get into today, but it is a thing that could affect where and how we make decisions to invest and what to do with our money. Okay, bias number 2. This is called recency bias. In plain English, essentially, as human beings, we tend to believe that whatever has happened recently in the recent past will continue to happen or has always happened, right? So for instance, let's say the markets aren't doing so well. Now we forget what it's like when the markets were doing well, or tend to miss the point that the markets will pick up, right? So the way we've sort of de-risked this in our product. So for those of you who've checked out the Basis app, thank you. For those who haven't, please do so. You can download it on the Play Store. There's one action we've researched and noticed that investors take is when markets fall, they tend to panic and pull out of the investments they've made, even though those investments were made for the long term. So for instance, if you have a 15-year goal for your child's education, and in 3 or 4 years from now, the markets don't do so well, there are high chances of you pulling out. Now, the way we've designed our product, and this is how we've realized and we've been advised to kind of help our investors overcome this bias, is by not making our portfolio, or your portfolio rather, front and center, right? So when you use Basis, or when you use kind of any investments app, a lot of them do tend to show you your portfolio as soon as you log in, right? Like, oh, gains for today, losses for today, etc., which is fine. I mean, it's good to know that information, but because of recency bias, especially when markets fall, we may tend to react to that in ways we shouldn't. So within our app, at least, we don't kind of give the portfolio as much importance in terms of an experience. Obviously, the information is available for everyone to see, but it's not kind of right there in front of your eyes. Bias number 3, loss aversion. Now, this one is super interesting. When I first read about it and I started observing my own patterns of thinking, again, a lot of these are applicable to non-money situations as well. So essentially, loss aversion is the concept or the behavior where we as human beings tend to feel stronger about losses than we do about gains. So the feeling of losing 1,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees is much, much, much stronger and affects us a lot more than a feeling of gaining that same 1,000 or 10,000 rupees. Notice this about yourself with different things. If something is given to you and then taken away, that feels worse. That feels much worse than not having it in the first place itself. Now, how can we kind of keep this in check while we invest? Well, before I go into that, I want to talk about how this kind of could play out in investments, right? So what tends to happen is on both ends, right? Like, let's say a particular investment is not doing so well. A lot of investors tend to hold on to that just out of the fear of realizing those losses. Like, oh, those losses will become real if I sell out of something that is already fallen in value. And on the flip side, let's say an investment is doing well, and it may continue to do well in the future. Investors tend to sell out of it early, just out of the fear of losing out on the gains that they may already have had, right? So these are very, very common behaviors we've seen in the market. And like I said, it's not gender specific, it's not India specific, it's a global kind of behavior that a lot of scientists have researched about. Now, how can we avoid kind of having loss aversion dictate when and how we pull in or pull out of an investment? Well, it's to work with an advisor, right? If you're working with us at Basis, we'll ensure that these kind of emotional decisions made because our investors are fearing losses more than having the opportunity to gain, we'll kind of have that unbiased advice to give you. So work with an advisor. Your bias will be in check, your emotions will be in check, and also just realize that this is a very common kind of bias we all have. So just be conscious of it as well. In fact, there was a tweet I recently read where I forget who it was, but they said something along the lines of, when markets fall, just go to the gym or meditate. It could be doubly beneficial for you. So you're not, selling out of something, as a knee-jerk reaction, and you're getting the benefit of going to the gym or meditating, etc. Okay, so bias number 4. This one is overconfidence bias. Essentially, what it means is, as human beings, we tend to overvalue our capabilities more than what we're capable of doing. Now, so this is when people will, think they know something more about. Let's say we're looking at stocks, right? Now, obviously, stock picking is not an easy job; requires a lot of research. But what overconfidence bias, where it essentially plays out, is taking a decision to buy into a stock, for instance, when you think you just know more than everyone else, when chances are you may not. The good news for us women is a lot of this overconfidence is correlated to testosterone levels. And so we may just naturally be, immune to it. But another way of, again, keeping this bias in check is to kind of go along with automated recommendations, right? So there are algorithms and models. We've built one out at Basis. We spent several months building this so that it's as unbiased, it's as data-driven as possible in terms of recommending what to invest in. So by looking at automated or looking at decision-making via an automated recommendation engine will sort of help us all overcome that overconfidence bias. And of course, like I said, as women, we may be, less prone to this, but still good to kind of keep it in check. Okay, the last one I'm going to say is actually a positive bias. We have learned, we have talked about this in a prior chat when we spoke about financial goals. So it is the concept of mental accounting. You can look it up. I'll go over what it is as well. So it's essentially this concept that as human beings, especially with money, we tend to bucket our goals, expenses, etc. So if this is my kids' education fund, I'm not going to take money out of it to put in my travel fund, or this is my fund for my car, or this is my fund, my freedom fund, or my emergency fund. They're all not sort of fungible, right? And this bias is actually great when it comes to goal planning and not kind of mixing up your money across different goals. So this is great. Set up those financial goals. We released this feature on Basis just 2 days ago. We'd love for folks to test it out, check it out, give us your feedback. Financial goals are the most effective way of investing and actually achieving all the things we all want to achieve in our lives. And so, yeah, so that's it. 5 biases, hopefully 5 actionable ways to address them. And happy to take questions or kind of go deeper into these if you may be interested. But start observing them. Start trying to de-risk these biases, the negative ones we spoke about. And as always, talk about it with each other. Cool, thank you.